Hi, and welcome back to the podcast. Episode 164 is an interview with Tomas Drybala. Tomas is a keynote speaker, flow and mindful runner, extreme runner, and author of the book Flow Up, Get Rid of Stress, Anxiety and Overwhelm and Unlock Focus, Creativity and Joy. Ron comes on the podcast again and we chat with Tomas about how he discovered flow for himself, what the conditions and blockers for flow are, how you can use flow in your running as well as everyday life, and all about his upcoming challenge to run the circumference of the world. That's a big one. So my mental toughness training workshop went so well. We ended up with 20 attendees, participants, whatever you want to say, and there was lots of laughs and lots of learning. I love doing these sessions in person, as there's always just such a great vibe with being with people in real life, and we've missed so much of that it's just awesome. Look out for my next live event. I don't know about you, but I've been loving Stranger Things and getting back into the Umbrella Academy. 2 excellent series on Netflix. Sadly, I haven't had a lot of time for reading, but when I do, it tends to be, personal development books, which I really enjoy, because I feel that I can always work on myself and becoming a better person. Let me know if you know of any good personal development books, as I always love to hear people's recommendations. Podcast-wise, I've been listening to A Short History Of, which has actually been fascinating. So far, I've learned about the Vikings and the Black Death, which really puts COVID into perspective, let me assure you. On Audible, I've been listening to Wayne Dyer and his book, Excuses Be Gone, which has affirmed many of my beliefs and actions. Let me know any Audibles that you think are good as well, And I've discovered that peak chocolate also do hot chocolate with added magnesium and other herbs that help you sleep. You really need to give this a try. It's nice to be able to have a healthy dessert-style drink, because I like to have something sweet, in the evening, but it actually helps to relax your muscles and helps you sleep. It's 2 things that I tend to have a little bit of trouble with. And like I said, I love to have a hot chocolate every night. So this really fits in with my lifestyle. It doesn't have sugar. It's not going to razz you up at night. So don't forget to use the code Isabel Ross, all caps, no spaces, over at their website, peakchocolate.com, to get a massive 15% off. Now, if you are looking to run further or faster than you ever have before, you need to have structured, individualized training to help you get there. If you want to achieve the best you are capable of, email me, Isabel at peakendurancecoaching.com.au, to get a program started, or just to ask me some questions, whatever, or just for a chat. Anyway, enjoy the podcast. Hi, Tom, and welcome to the Peak Endurance Podcast.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
No worries. Now, today I have Ron with me because he's interested in your topic.
Yep.
Now, can you just tell the listeners a bit about yourself? I've done a little intro separate, but can you just tell the listeners a bit about yourself and how you got into ultra running?
Sure. So I'm a keynote speaker, flow and mindful running teacher, extreme runner, and author of the book Flow Up, Get Rid of Anxiety, Stress and Overwhelm, and Unlock Focus, Creativity and Joy. And I'm actually running for nearly 20 years, but for the first about 15, maybe 16 years, it was like running twice a week, maximum half an hour, just to clear my mind after the work. So purely for the mental health. And then in 2016, I started training a bit more. I increased my training to 5-6 times per week, at least 1 hour a day. And then in 2018, in March, I started training really intensively, and I decided that I would start running some big challenges. But at that time, early 2018, I didn't know yet what it would be. I think in November 2019, there was a guy, Ross, who swam around the Great Britain.
Yes,
he
that's
spent
right.
like
Ross Edgley.
Yeah, that's correct. And he spent nearly 160 days in the sea. Yep. And I was like, oh my God, if that guy can spend 160 days in the sea, then I can actually run some crazy distances. Then I increased my trainings even more. And in April 2019, so a bit year over, a year later after I started running, after I starting training a lot, I began my first challenge. And my first challenge was to make 5 million steps in 100 days. I was late by 1 day. So I did it in 101 days. It was quite heavy. It was my first challenge. I didn't know what to expect. I increased making steps from around 25,000 steps a day on the first day to over 100,000 steps in the last days. So it was quite crazy. I think I'm sometimes when I'm telling about this challenge, I'm saying that if I will know how hard it will be, that probably I will never start it.
What sort of distance did you cover in that time?
I ran because it was like multi-sport. So at that time I was running, swimming, cycling, and doing some cross fitness. And my activity watch was calculating the steps. I passed nearly 6,000 kilometers altogether within this time. And altogether, I made 5 million steps. It was a really interesting challenge because I did it in Asia, in a few different countries, on a few different islands. So it was really interesting challenge. And then, when I passed those 5 million steps, I actually knew that I can train for anything, because if I manage to make this one, I know that I can train for anything in my life. And 3 weeks later, I started running 11,000 kilometers from Hanoi in Vietnam to Denpasar in Bali. Halfway, COVID-19 catch me. I mean, I couldn't run any longer. I managed to escape in last boat from Singapore to Sumatra before the Sumatra and Malaysia was shut down. But I couldn't continue running because there was a lockdown. Indonesia was never under the full lockdown, but you couldn't move even from one village to another village.
Right.
So I got stuck for 6 months. I divided the remaining distance, 5,500 kilometers, on 268 half marathons. And I was running locally through the jungle and through the village, 2 to 5 half marathons daily. And I passed the entire distance, 11,000 kilometers. And now I'm running 2,500 kilometers through Poland and United Kingdom. I mean, first half distance I passed in United Kingdom. Now I'm running through Poland. And this is actually the preparation for the main challenge, which I'm starting later this year, to run the circumference of the Earth, 40,000 kilometers. And that was my journey. So, it's actually started from taking care about my mental health. It goes a bit crazy.
It does. Spoken like a true ultra runner, though, just going one step further every time.
Yeah, exactly.
Or thousands of steps further in your case.
Now, you talk about flow. When did you first come upon the concept of flow?
Yeah, it was actually when I was running my first 2 big challenges. So those 5 million steps and 11,000 kilometers. Before this, I never even heard that word flow. I didn't have idea what it is. But when I was running those both challenges, at some point, I started running like crazy distances, like 70 kilometers a day, 80, 90, 100 kilometers. And, I was repeating this one day, second day, third day, next week. And it was against any kind of the rules which I know before, because, of course, it was heavy physical exercise. It was kind of the effortless that, I passed those distances, and it was extremely enjoyable time. And not only this, by the end of the run, I usually start running like really early, 5:30 in the morning, because I wanted to avoid that, really heavy heat wave after the 1 p.m. So usually I finish around noon, 1, 2 p.m. I was after the run. And then I was able to open my laptop and then work for the next few hours and be really, active in my work, in my business. So it was shocking for me. And then I started reading, discovering why I'm feeling that way. And then I discovered that actually I'm getting into the state of flow, that I'm regularly, almost every day, getting into the state of flow. I get curious how this is happening, what I have to do to make it regularly. Before this, I always felt really anxious, stressed, overwhelmed because of my childhood. So it affected me heavily for nearly 40 years of my life. And then all of those feelings disappeared, and I was really like clear in my mind, open-minded. I could learn, I could run crazy distances, I can work for hours. It was shock for me. It was amazing feeling. So I get curious how this is happening, and then I just started doing purposeful. I just started creating the conditions for flow.
So how would you define flow?
For me, the definition, there's a lot of definitions of the flow, but for me is a really simple definition. I'm just always saying that the mind is becoming focused only on the task at hand, on performing activity or whatever you do. Because I managed to convert flow from running to lots of other activities which I do throughout the day. And the main thing of the flow is that we are heavily focused, hyper focused on an activity which we have in front of us, which we are doing. So, when we are in flow, we feel really strong and positive. We don't worry about ourselves or the fires that something will not work. We're just doing that thing which we want to do. We know exactly what we are going to do and how we want to achieve this. Those, all those steps just flowing from one step to another. You don't really have to think about this. It's just easily happening. And we feel deeply connected with the performed activity, with the performed task. We feel in control of our performance, of whatever we do. And experiencing flow is extremely rewarding. And thanks to this, we are building a interesting motivation, because we simply want to do it again. We simply want to be, we just do this for the sake of the being in the flow. So that's the main things. That's what flow means for me. And of course, we can divide flow on a micro flow, the things which are happening to us on a daily basis, and we can divide the flow on the macro flow. So the macro flows are those big things. Those are the things which are associated with the peak performance. So that's when we run the crazy distances, or we compete with the other athletes.
Do you have a method that you use for yourself to get into the flow, like once you start running, or do you find you go into it without even realizing it, or how do you manage yourself?
Yeah, at the beginning, it actually happened without realizing it. I started getting into the flow, and then I realized what. And it's a bit funny about this, how I get on the first time into the state of flow, because when I was running through Asia, I was originally I'm from Poland, but for the past 21 years I live in London, in United Kingdom. And in Poland and in London, in the places when I was living, we don't have really snakes, at least not many of them, and for sure not dangerous snakes. And when I was running through Asia, and I was running through little roads, through the jungle, through the small villages, through the fields, etc., and the snakes were absolutely everywhere.
We have them here in Australia as well. Lots.
Yeah, I can believe you. So I was worried, because the few times I almost stepped on the snake, and because, as I said, that I always felt anxious, stressed, and overwhelmed. My mind was always dwelling in the past or worrying about the future. I barely was in the present moment. My mind was always flying somewhere. And then a few times I almost stepped on the snake. So it was kind of the life and death situation for me at that time. That's at least how I seen this. And I couldn't dwell on the past any longer. I just have to focus on the present moment. And because I was focusing on the road ahead of me, looking, just in front of my legs to not step on the snake, I started heavily getting into the state of flow because I was getting into the present moment. And because I was running just with a backpack from hotel to hotel, so in the morning I was booking a hotel and I was running to the next place. So I was setting clear goals for myself. I was adjusting these goals because sometimes the weather was really heavy, and sometimes there was a bit of rain and it was easier. Some weeks are enjoying more the run. Some of the weeks you are not enjoying so much. So on the way, adjust those goals, and I was getting the immediate feedback from those goals.
Yep.
Because when I arrived to the hotel, basically I reached the goal.
Yeah.
So all of those was creating the conditions for flow. I didn't know at the time when I was doing this. I learned about all of this later, and I just started creating all of those conditions purposefully. So I started using mindfulness. I discovered that all of this, which I'm practicing, focusing on the present moment awareness, that I'm actually practicing mindful running and active meditation. And, I become aware of the present moment. I become really conscious of my body, of my breath, of the surrounding. And I started practicing mindfulness, mindful running and active meditation. And that's what helped me and is still helping me to get into the state of flow.
How does mindfulness differ from meditation, or are they much the same?
So I'm always saying that I'm practicing mindful running and active meditation. And the difference between is that, mindful running, you are becoming aware of your body, breath, and surrounding as you run. So the mindfulness is all about doing just that, just staying focused on your run, your movement, your body, your thoughts, being in the present moment. So we are able to get into the state of flow only when we are in the present moment. So that's how you get to the flow through the mindful running. But when it comes to active meditation, you can actually implement active meditation to any sort of the physical activity which you do throughout the day. And the beauty of the active meditation is that comparing to the traditional meditation, the rules are pretty much similar, but comparing to the traditional meditation is when you have to separate the time and have that time, quiet place, sit down for 10, 15 minutes, 1 hour, etc. The beauty of the active meditation is that you can implement that active meditation for 3 minutes, let's say, to start with, to lots of different activities which you do on a daily basis. So let me give you a few examples. So you can implement active meditation to, for example, putting your clothes on. When you wake up in the morning and you put your clothes on, you can just focus on what you are putting on the material, on how it touches your skin, and just stay focused on every single item which you're putting on throughout the day, because the whole idea is to stay in the present moment, to be aware of what you are doing in the current time. The other thing you can practice active meditation when you're brushing your teeth. So when you brush your tooth, you can focus, on the flavor of your toothpaste, on how the brush touch your tooth, if you feel any pain, and all the sensations. And you will discover here actually that it's quite difficult to stay focused for 2 minutes during the brushing your tooth, that your mind is really doing everything except for the focusing on those 2 minutes brushing your teeth. You can do this when you drink your coffee or eating a sweet. Again, focus on all the flavors, trying to recognize the flavors. If you if you feel a pain somewhere in your mouth, you can practice active meditation when you walk to work. Just try to stay focused for a few minutes on your steps, on your breath, or on the surroundings. Try to not notice things which you never noticed before in your area. You can implement active meditation to cooking a dinner, for example. So, comparing the vegetables, or recognizing the shape of the vegetables, smell the flavors and name the flavors in your mind. So, wherever you do throughout the day, you can implement active meditation to those activities. And if the mind is learning through the repetition. So if you keep your mind busy in the present moment awareness, then your mind later is just starting to doing this automatically. You're just focusing on the things, and all of this is helping you get into the state of flow. So you can, when you get into the state of flow, so here we can talk for the active meditation, we can talk here about those micro flows. So we can divide this on the things which you do on the daily basis. So that's called, you can get into the flow when you're running a short distances. You can get into the flow when you're cycling, when you're swimming, when you're playing guitar or playing chess, when you're cooking, when you're dancing, when you're having sex, when you're writing, when you're reading, listening to music. So the flow is happening when you do the activities which you love, which you are passionate about. So then that active meditation you can implement to all those small activities which you do throughout the day, and that will help you to create flow in those things which you do throughout the day and when you are passionate about. And then when you practice mindful running, of course, it's also helping you to get to those to flow between those little activities throughout the day. But then the mindful running will help you to create those macro flows, those big moments. And when you practice all those things on a daily basis, the more you practice on the daily basis, the more flow you achieve in those big activities. And as I said, that the brain is learning through repetition. So you will be able to implement those mindfulness techniques when you need them mostly. So for example, when you're racing, when you compete with people, and when it's getting really hard, then your mind is ready, your mind is prepared, is ready to implement the mindful running active meditation techniques. And then you can come back to the present moment, stop worrying, about the knee pain, and just, start pushing stronger, get into the flow, and, start running faster.
Do you tend to practice the flow on all your runs, or are some runs there where you get out there and run and your mind just wanders and, you just...
I don't. Yeah, I don't. Most of my runs are the, kind of the present moment runs. As I'm not competing with other athletes. I never race. My focus is on a really long distances. Most of my runs, I train, I practice mindfulness.
Okay.
But not always. Sometimes, I always practice if I'm going for a run and something negative is happening, and I need to implement those techniques to get into the positive mind again, and positive thinking and present moment. But sometimes I just let my mind dwell. Some of the runs I'm just enjoying. Sometimes I'm going for a run because I'm dealing with some kind of the issue or problem or creative work, and I'm just letting to my mind to dwell in all those things. So mostly I'm training, practicing mindfulness, but not always. Okay. And I wouldn't recommend practicing every single time mindfulness. Just go with the flow.
So how does being in flow help us reach peak performance?
So I think it's the best if I will explain here what is happening when we are getting into the state of flow. It was kind of the breakthrough for me when I understand that what is happening when we get into the state of flow. So when we get into the state of flow, the prefrontal cortex, so the front of our brain, is shutting down. So it's almost not working, or in some cases maybe can not work at all, but it's basically shutting down. When the prefrontal cortex shuts down, our nervous system is restarting. So all those anxieties, stresses, overwhelms are disappearing at the time when the prefrontal cortex shuts down. The time is calculated in prefrontal cortex. So when the brain shuts down, when the prefrontal cortex shuts down, the brain cannot separate any longer the past from the present and from the future. And we are getting into the deep now. So we are getting into the present moment. We are getting into the here and now. When the prefrontal cortex shuts down, our self of sense is resetting. So that means that all this self-criticism, those negative things which we are saying to ourselves, all the self-doubt is just resetting at that time. So we are literally getting out of our own way. The risk taking, because we are getting out of our own way and we are stopping doubting ourselves, the risk taking is getting up. We don't worry about the virus any longer. So when we reset the entire nervous system and we are getting out of our way, we don't think any longer that I cannot really run 50 kilometers today because the morning was pretty much shitty for me and I don't feel like all those negative things is just disappearing when we get into the flow. So that is helping us massively with the peak performance and with the endurance and with achieving really crazy results.
Okay. So if we're out running and we're trying to get into flow, what might stop us?
The biggest flow blockers are basically our thoughts. So, every human have between 40,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day. We don't really hear those thoughts. We don't know they are happening because all of this is mostly happening in our subconscious mind. So let's call it on the back of our mind. And, we all have traumas in our lives. Some of the people, they have more heavy traumas like, death of the close person, or we may have a childhood traumas like having issues with the domestic violence at home, or the verbal violence or emotional violence, or we may experience the war in our childhood. But the traumas can be such a simple things like being, for example, questioned when we was 8 years old by our teacher and answering a silly answer, and the teacher said something bad to us, and the kids started laughing, and this can be our block for the performance. We may think that we cannot achieve big things because, for example, teacher said to us, "Oh, Tom, you're never gonna achieve anything in your life if you don't know such a simple things." And this can be actually really heavy trauma for us. This can affect us for the rest of our life. It's worth to understand here how the trauma works and what is actually happening in our mind and in our body. So all those traumatic experiences, if we don't heal them, we may have the injury when we was a kid, and we may heal the injury, physically, but we may never heal this injury mentally, spiritually, emotionally. We may be simply afraid that, okay, if we push when we run, we can have that injury once again. Mm-hmm. And we don't really think about this. It's just coming from our subconscious mind. We just don't push ourselves because we are afraid of this pain, of this injury. And if we don't heal those past traumatic experiences mentally and emotionally, this will always come back to us. And it will always come back to us in the moments when we don't want this when we mostly don't want this to get to us. So what is actually happening? When the brain doesn't recognize the difference between the visualization and reality. So what that means, that if we see, for example, lion or tiger in front of us, and if something triggers that past traumatic experience, so for example, we are running and we feel a bit of pain in our knee, this may trigger the painful memory from our past. Then the brain don't recognize the difference between visualization, so this painful memory, and reality. So for example, this lion in front of us. So the brain responds to that kind of the situation, to that kind of the treat, exactly the same way, by fly or fight response. So when the brain see that dangerous situation, is sending the signal to our body that we are in danger. When the body gets this signal from our brain, the body doesn't recognize what kind of the danger is it, because the brain, we know that this is lion, but this is our thoughts, which is coming a bit later. But the body already get the signal. Mm-hmm. So when the body gets the signal, the body tightens, because it's ready either to fight or to escape, to run away. When the body tightens, it sends the signal back to the brain, because the body senses the danger. So then the brain gets the signal from the body, and the brain gets the signal from the body. So the brain is sending back the signal to our body. And we are getting into the vicious cycle. So the brain is sending the signal about the danger, and the body is sending signal about the danger. In most cases, we can simply break the signal by implementing some mindfulness tools, by talking with someone, by making any other activity, I don't know, going with the friends for drinks. But if we didn't heal those past experiences, this signal will come back. The painful memory will back to us. And in some cases, that signal may stay, the tightness in our body may stay for a week, month, year, decade, sometimes even for the entire life. So that's causing the traumatic experiences. If we don't heal them, this is causing flow blockers. And we can resolve all those experiences by practicing, for example, mindful running and active meditation. And this is actually what I'm teaching people. I'm teaching people how to resolve those traumatic experiences, heal them, physical, mental, and emotional, through mindful running and active meditation.
So does that's doing the mindful running help to sort of release those blocks?
Yes, because when you practice mindful running and active meditation, you become very conscious of your body, mind, and your thoughts and your emotions, because you are in the present moment. So what happened to me when I started practicing mindful running and active meditation, I started recognizing that we have a physical pain, that we have a mental pain, which we feel in our body, and we have the emotional pain, which we feel in our body. We also have the pain, which is indicating the injury, and then we have to decide what will be our next step. We also have the pain, which is indicating the growth, that our muscle grows, our joints grows, our bones grows. So, when you are in the present moment, you are actually starting recognizing all those pains, because when you feel the pain in a knee or wherever in a finger, you then, by practicing mindful running, I'm teaching people how to then scan your brain, scan your mind, recognize your thoughts, and then you can recognize the patterns, because the brain learns by repetition, and the brain loves the patterns. So if the brain learned one pattern, then the brain is then copying those patterns to all other areas of our life. So by practicing mindful running and active meditation, you become very aware of your mind, body, and soul, and you can starting recognizing those patterns. Of course, it's easier said than done. You have to practice this for some time, and you have to go through some step-by-step practice, but it's possible. And I do have a great results with the people teaching them, and it's possible to be really conscious of your mind and start recognizing those blocks, flow blocks. When you recognize your flow blocks, you basically knows what is taking you to the flow, and then you can start learning how to create conditions for flow.
Do you think it's possible to pop in and out of mindfulness during a run? For instance, if you are running with a group of people, you're having a conversation, and then you focus back in on yourself and into mindfulness. Is that possible?
Oh, of course, absolutely. Yeah, most of the days I'm running on my own, but now I'm in Poland, and I haven't seen, for example, my sister for a very long time, and she's a runner too. So I'm going for a run like for 50 kilometers. She's going for a run for 10 kilometers or 15, not 50 kilometers. And then she's running with me for the first 10, 15 kilometers. She loves talks. So then, when we start running, she's talking all the time. I cannot really practice mindful running, but I can actually practice the mindfulness at that time, because I don't dwell on anything. I'm just listening to her. And
to be honest, mindfulness in a conversation is not necessarily a bad thing, because a lot of people, I mean, I'm sure you find the same, is when you're talking to someone, that they're kind of waiting just to have their turn to speak rather than actually listening, which is quite a skill in and of itself.
Absolutely. So yeah, you can play with the mindfulness. Then the great thing about the mindfulness is that the mindfulness is giving you that space in the mind, that you understand that having a thought is your biology. That's how the mind is constructed. We have, as I said, we have up to 70,000 thoughts a day. Once you understand this, you don't respond to every single thoughts. You understand that, okay, thoughts is just the events in my mind. It's just something what is happening. And then it's up to me if I respond to these thoughts. The thoughts cause, provokes our emotions. Then you understand that, okay, not every thought needs to provoke emotions inside me. So the mindfulness is giving you that space, and you can really play a lot, because you have that time to pause and to say, oh, should I respond to this or not? So you give that a bit of time, and then you can play a lot. The life is just getting much easier with mindfulness.
Now, mindfulness, as you say, is focusing on the present moment, but and we can do it throughout our lives, not just with running. But is there a place in life for planning ahead and thinking about the future and contemplating the past and those sorts of things anyway?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
So mindfulness is focusing purely on the present moment, and you talk about using mindfulness throughout our lives, not just running. But is there not a place in life to think about the future and to learn from the past and think about the past? How do we incorporate that in with the mindfulness?
Absolutely, because when you practice mindfulness, you become not only aware of your body, mind, and soul, but you clearly understand what is causing all those behaviors which you have. So I do this actually all the time, but when you don't practice mindfulness, when all those thoughts, 70,000 thoughts a day, are happening in your subconscious mind, then you are kind of running your life on autopilot. And I know that most of the people, I did have a conversation with my nephew about this yesterday. He just came from another city where he's studying, and I haven't seen him for quite long. And I was explaining to him all of these rules, and he said to me, "Oh, I don't have this problem. I know exactly what is happening in my life." It's great that you think that that it is like this, but it's not. 98% of population doesn't live in the present moment awareness. The statistic is killing this. And most of us, if you will ask me 5 years ago if I was living in the present moment, obviously, of course, every decision was my own decision, but it wasn't. Now I know that almost my entire life was driven by my subconscious mind and by those patterns. And now when you practice this mindfulness, when you kind of the master mindfulness, now you do all of this consciously. So then you can properly plan that future. You can reflect on your past and understand what was causing the particular behaviors. And you can plan for the future and avoid this or change this or make this, different way, better way. You're just starting building your life consciously. So absolutely, there is a space here for thinking about the past and planning the future, but you just do this on a totally different level.
Mm-hmm. Now, just looking at your challenge that you've got coming up, doing the circumference of the world. We were talking earlier, and you said that you're going to be running 300 kilometers per week, doing 75 kilometers per day over 4 days. I was just wondering, how come you're not running every day, but doing perhaps less kilometers or whatever it is? But how come it's only, or not only, but how come you're doing it over 4 days per week?
Because this is my knowledge about the flow. So basically, you can create there is no guarantee that you can always get into the flow. The flow, there is no any secret formula for flow, and for every single person, flow means something different. And again, even if you know exactly when you understand flow and when you know what kind of the conditions you have to create to get into the flow state, there is no guarantee you can get into the flow state. But you can always create the high flow lifestyle. So there is a high possibility that when you create that conditions for flow, that you can get into the flow regularly. So to get into the what goes up when you're into the flow, then you are getting really high with the peak performance. But what goes up must go down. You cannot stay up all the time. And the flow is actually the cycle. So the flow have 4 stages. So the first stage is the struggle. Most of the people, when they starting struggle with something, they starting thinking, "Oh, I'm doing something bad. I need to change this." But that's actually the first stage to the struggle. When I started running at the beginning and started running regularly, 5 kilometers was difficult. That was the struggle. 10 kilometers, when I increased this to 10 kilometers, it was the struggle. It's not like 10 kilometers become easy for me. And whatever we do in life is exactly the same. Wherever new you're starting, at the beginning, there is a struggle. And it's easier if you understand this, that this is the first stage of the struggle, because then when you accept this, it's less difficult. So, the first stage is the struggle. The second stage is release. So, for example, to give you to answer the question, so I'm starting running on Monday 75 kilometers after the weekend. I'm not running on the weekend, so the first few kilometers is going to be quite difficult. It's going to be quite struggle. Maybe I'm going to run through the mountains at that time. So I expect this it's going to be difficult. Then it becomes easier because the body gets into the movement again. It's because it's easier. I'm forgetting about the pushing my limits. I release this. It's maybe by the end of the day that I finish running, And then after the running, I will usually have the interview or the workshops. I will talk with the podcasters, or I will run the workshop along the way of my running. So you see, I'm forgetting here about the running, and I'm starting another activity. So this is the release time. When I release the struggle, I'm not thinking anymore about pushing my limits. So the next day, more likely, or there is a high possibility, maybe not more likely, but there is a high possibility, then the next day is going to be the time when I will get into the flow, because I have a struggle, I have a release, and then the next stage is the flow. And often this is happening to me. And then is the recovery. The fourth stage is the recovery. So I go up and I have to go down. So, then I need to give a time to my body. So to the body, mind, and emotions and the soul, just give a time for the recovery. And this is how I constructed my entire week. So I'm running Monday, Tuesday, 75 kilometers each day, 150 kilometers. That's a big challenge for the body and for the mind. Wednesday is my recovery day, and then I'm starting the flow cycle again. So Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and Sunday, I'm in recovery stage again, so in the fourth stage of the flow. So this is actually explaining, it's just my knowledge about the flow, and this is how I construct it. Plus, another things that I'm not only running through the world. We have over 400 events along the way, and those days when I'm not running, those are the days when actually I talk with the people.
Yeah.
So how long are you anticipating it will take you?
So I'm starting running I'm on the 26th of September. I'm going to United States by the end of August. And on the 26th of September, I'm starting running from New York, running down the country to Florida, through the ocean coast, then turning towards the Mexican border. I'm running on the other side of the United States, close to the Mexican border, to San Diego, turning up again to the ocean coast to Seattle. So there's a U-shape, roughly around 10,000 kilometers. This will take me 9 to 10 months. Then I have a month break. We will have to transport all the equipment to another continent, to Asia, to Hong Kong. I'm starting running from Hong Kong to China, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, then Indonesia, Sumatra, Java, in Bali. Then again, 1 month break. All the time I'm running through the ocean coast. Then a 1 month break. We are transporting all the equipment to Kuwait, to Arabian Peninsula, starting running U-shape through Arabian Peninsula. So Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, Emirates, Oman. I'm not going into Yemen because there's still war zone in there, a bit too danger. Turning up back to Saudi Arabia. This is going to be probably the most difficult part, because I have to pass around 1,000 kilometers through empty water, so only sun, sand, and me.
Sun and sand.
And yeah, exactly. And then getting to Red Sea, running up through the Saudi Arabia, to the top of the Saudi Arabia, passing through the Red Sea to Egypt, running still around 600 kilometers to Cairo. Then again, 1 month break. And we're moving all the equipment to Greece, to Europe, to Athens, and that's the last part. Starting from Athens, Greece, and all the European countries through the Mediterranean Sea coast, the Atlantic Ocean coast, passing the sea to United Kingdom, still running around 200 kilometers to London. So yeah, I'm starting on the 26th of September. And fingers crossed, I will end. That's the plan by the end of 2025, just before the Christmas 2025. So it's a 3.5 years of running in front of me. But I look at this a different way. It's a 3.5 years of being in the flow.
Yes.
And who do you have supporting you?
I'm starting running, all my previous challenges I just did with a backpack, and I was running just, from one place to another, from one hotel to another, carrying a laptop inside my backpack and doing all my work, speaking at the universities. Even when I was speaking at the universities in Thailand, I was just running from one university to another university. Now when I'm starting from the New York, I'm starting on my own, just with a backpack. And then before the end of the October, my team will join me. So we will have some cars, we will have the production team, we will have camera 24 hours a day with us. We will have the caravans, we will have the broadcasting studio with us. So then we can connect with any podcasting studio or the television or radio from around the globe. And we will be building trauma-informed communities along the way of my running road. So we will teach people about the trauma, because there is not much knowledge what is causing trauma and how we can heal traumas. So we will teach people about this.
Wow, sounds awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing a lot of good work though along the way as well. So
trying to do. It takes me quite a few years to put the entire challenge together. And now there's a lot
how
of
long
agents.
have you been planning this?
I was thinking for the first time about this in 2016.
Oh wow!
But I didn't know yet how it will be. And when I got stuck in Sumatra, when I was running my second challenge, that 11,000 kilometers, I was for 6 months on my own in a hotel room. There was actually no one speaking in English in a place where I was. So I didn't have plenty of time to think and to plan. And then when I come back to London, so it was September 2020, when I back to London, I started putting this together. I didn't know it's going to be so big. I didn't know that I will eventually run 40,000 kilometers, the circumference of the Earth. But then I started approaching some charity organizations. I become the ambassador for the Wave Trust charity organization. Now I will be fundraising also for UNICEF along the way of my running road. I created the entire coaching program. I created the community of mindful running and active meditation practitioners, so people can join the program online. And we will have over 400 events along the way of my running road. So there will be events for running. I'm sorry I'm not coming to Australia.
Yes, I was going to say, no Australia.
You could have added quite a few kilometers running around Australia.
That's true. But the thing is, the other day I was also talking with another podcaster from Australia, with a physiotherapist, and he asked me that question. He said to me, I feel a bit offended that you're not coming to Australia. But I was considering, but there was a difficult connection. Australia is quite far from all the places when I'm running.
Yeah.
And it was quite difficult connection for all the equipment, for all the cars and the caravans, which we have to transport. So it was difficult to arrange this. The logistic was really difficult for Australia. So I decided, okay, I have to go to a different place. But I was considering to go to Australia.
Yeah. Maybe that's a different adventure.
Yeah, probably. But I'm saying because my mom is telling to me, okay, but you are all the time out out of home, and I'm saying, okay, this is my last challenge. That 40,000 kilometers is my last big challenge. That I'm retiring.
Yeah.
Not like retiring, but I want to continue be the keynote speaker, and I want to continue working with charity organizations and build trauma-informed communities, run the workshops, teach people how to implement mindfulness into running, how to practice active meditation, how to practice flow. I wrote the book, and I will promote this book. Then after I will run this big challenge, I want to write another book. So I'm not going to completely retire. I'm going to continue my mission, my message. But I will retire from those crazy challenges, from running those crazy distances.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if people want to, like, your book's not out yet, is it? It's coming out?
No, it's coming out. We was planning to publish the book on the 30th of October.
Yeah.
But we want to give a bit of time, more time to promote the book, and we moved the book to 10th of publishing the book to 10th of January. But people can actually already sign up for the book on my website, and they can register for the book, so they will receive the emails when the book is published. And then there is a reason for this, because January, February, and March, because it's a self-help book for the personal growth. And January, February, and March are the strongest months for people taking care about the personal growth.
Year, I guess,
because starting the year, exactly.
Yeah.
So starting year, so we decide, okay, it's the best month. The publisher suggested that.
All right. Well, I'll put the link in to your website so people can have a look at that. Are you on? I mean, I know you are, but social media. Where can people follow you on social media?
Sure. I'm usually the most active on Instagram. But when I will start running the main challenge, all my social media will be very active. As I said, we will have the production team with us, so all social media will be very active. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and also the TikTok. So all the social media, you can find me on all social media. So you're going to do some
TikTok videos while you're out there, are you?
We will do, yes. So I will have the camera following me 24 hours a day, and a couple of people for the production team. And we are recording actually the documentary movie, 4 seasons. So the season from US, Asia, Arabia, and Europe. So I think it's going to be a really interesting journey.
It sure will be. Yeah, that's exciting. All right. Well, I'll put all those links in the show notes if people want to hop on there. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all your knowledge about flow.
It's been very interesting.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.